upbringing, my teenage years in Jamaica was where I really had to learn to explain and understand my Garifuna identity. So I grew up in Belize City until I was 10. And then we moved to Jamaica and we ended up living there for 9 years. It was supposed to be 3, but I don't know, adult situation, contracts change. We ended up there for 9 years, which in my father's field of work is kind of unheard of. Essentially, I was in Jamaica for all of high school and sixth form, between 10 and 19. And moving to Jamaica, where the Black people there are just Black people. They're the descendants of slaves. And this was maybe standard 5, standard 6, right? The very end of elementary school. I'm in this geography social studies class and they're talking about the Tainos, right? The indigenous people of Jamaica and how they're dead. And oh, the Caribs, yeah, they were cannibals. And I was like, because I'm a child. I wasn't raised to like disrespect the teacher and to be contrary to the teacher. But I remember being like, but miss, I am Garifuna and I am part Carib and I'm alive. So the Caribs can't be dead. They can tell me that I'm not Garifuna because I have visited Belize. I've met some elders on the street who recognize my last name. And then once they realize I can't speak Garifuna, they're like, oh, mama, you're not Garifuna. I've had people tell me that. And you know what? I'm here to say I am Garifuna. No one can tell me, no one can measure my Garifuna-ness. Yes, there are those of us who can speak fluent. Yes, there are those of us who can play drums and sing all the songs. Yeah. But the rest of us, we are just as Garifuna. It is in my blood. It is in my resilience. It is in my devotion to my family. And it is in my spirituality, which leads into my sister and I did a podcast. Yes, it's called Garifuna Sisters Talk Spirituality because I was curious. I wanted to know more and I'm a millennial and I thought, well, I want to know more and I want other people to hear these conversations because it's not just for me. This is for the rest of us Garifuna young people in Lisuria who are having these crazy spiritual experiences with no one to talk to. And we have the internet. Like what you're doing, Derek. Like, let's use it.
Yes, it's a tool.
And yes, it's a double-edged sword, but let's use the sword in the good way. That evening in Morocco with some kind of party happening outside, I was like, Ma, something is wrong. I think I see dead people and this is not okay. And I don't feel okay. And I don't know what to do. Because I would not have said anything, but it got that bad. And I was like, no, I know this is crazy, but this is what's happening. And she said, well, shout out to my mother, goodness gracious. She was like, well, what are you hearing? What are they telling you? And I said, I don't know. It sounds like noise, but sometimes it's songs. And I don't know. I was panicking. And she was on her own journey at the time. And she had a contact with a buye in Laboga. And she was like, all right, I'm going to call the buye. I'm going to send you to Laboga and we'll see. Since then, it's been many, many, many conversations with different elders. And what I now understand is, yes, I have this woman. Her name was given to me some time ago, but whenever I say it out loud to people, the internet like goes wrong and weird things happen when I say her name out loud to people. So I just call her the woman who walks with me. I really wanted to go live with a cousin in Guatemala and like work at his bar or something and just be, because I know that when you're surrounded, when I spent a month with my granny, the last time I was in Belize in November, I spent a month with my grandmother. And in her old age, she doesn't want to speak English anymore. She can speak English, you know, but she refuses to speak English anymore. After that month I spent with her this past November, I was understanding so much more Garifuna in my life. So in my mid-20s, I really wanted to go to Guatemala and spend like a summer. It ended up not working out, but ideally, I wish we could make some kind of program sending Garifuna people, like young people from Belize, over to Honduras or Guatemala for a summer to live like a Garifuna living exchange. Because when you're
And
surrounded with it,
mhm.
survive or die,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
will
I think
learn.
that's the, like, only way I would learn a
Yes,
language, right?
yes. It's
To the
sink or
point of being
swim.
fluent.
Sink or swim. Walk around with the Garifuna dictionary and try to, you know.
Navigate.
Yeah, yeah. But I wasn't. Yeah, it didn't work. So yeah, my Garifuna is very limited to food and prayer. Music. Shout out to Palota Music School in Belize City because that's where I began. I
Mhm.
think it's a big music school now, but back in the day, um, it was like 5 students.
Oh, wow.
And I think my first violin, there were some Americans who donated violins to Paloti, I believe, because I
Mhm.
didn't own my first few violins. Um, when we moved to Jamaica and I was playing violin, everyone thought, "Oh, so you're rich because you can like afford violin lessons." And I didn't have the language, and as a child, I didn't know that we weren't paying for violin lessons. There was
Mhm.
a special at the time. I don't know what it's like now, but at the time,
Mhm.
it was like the Americans coming and helping.
Mhm.
So like volunteer work, and if we paid anything, it wasn't to the level of what people do pay for
Mhm.
violin lessons, which are famously expensive. When I was 15, I asked my parents for a guitar, and and I remember talking to Andy P, who I used to call Yao. He's my uncle. Well, he's everybody's uncle, I guess, because we're all related. But my father and him were like they were raised as like brothers, so he was my uncle. And I remember
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, yo, I'm getting a guitar. Like, I want to be like you." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah." And man, by the time I got the guitar when I was 16, and I could have sent him an email, and I was like, "No, I'm gonna wait until we're in Belize because he's on tour." And of course, he died a few months later. And I was never able to tell him in person, "I got the guitar." Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I got this guitar and I used it to sing the sad songs that were famous at the time because I was a sad teenager with just a lot of emotions. I don't think I
Mhm.
wasn't really sad, but I was just a teenager with a lot of emotions, feeling isolated in a foreign country.
Mhm.
Um, and in my early 20s, when I was in university, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Brazil. And I took the guitar with me to Brazil. And this is important because it was while I was in Brazil and even on the way to Brazil on the plane that I had my spiritual, I don't want to call this an experience, the beginning of my spiritual awakening.